I think I had one of the most funny, and we've started by the way because we record from the beginning. So I think I had one of the most funny interactions because sometimes I post stuff that I think is funny because I'm self-indulgent. I also read stuff that I think is funny. But we had this great interaction about Brussels sprouts. I don't know if you remember. It was about 4 or 5 years ago, and vegetables in general, I think. And it went on for quite a while, and a few people commented they were like following the Twitter stream, and because of that, I just love people with a sense of humour. I don't care what they believe in, well, within reason, obviously.
Okay, can I interject right now? Interject right now? Sense of humour with Brussels sprouts, right? Now I'm really scared,
Okay.
Right. Can we? Can
I introduce Mark because I don't know anything about him, other than my interactions on social media. But here's the things I can tell you.
And Brussels sprouts as well.
So I'm maybe at this point I should ask exactly what I agreed to today.
Sell your soul to the devil. That's what you agreed to because you're on our podcast. Okay, so first thing I say about Mark, I've been active on social media for over 10 years now. Mark is one of the nicest people I have ever met on social media. I'm not just saying that. I don't recommend it, but you could go back and listen to all our podcasts. I've never said that before. He's a super nice guy. He's got a great sense of humour. And I want to be him, basically. I kind of do because he's got a thick, lustrous head of hair with standing room only, whereas I've got this kind of like pasty, bald head and what have you. But also
he has a look as well. He has a great look, my friend. But you don't have.
He looks cool, doesn't it? But here's the deal about something like Mark who looks cool. They don't care. I want to. If he looked like me, he'd be like, "Oh, that's okay, that's fine." But he doesn't care. So, Mark, thank you for joining us. After that rather rambling, long intro, that wasn't really an intro. It was just whatever.
A good attempt, Tim. But I think it's the best intro that you ever had, So, Mark, you're lucky. You're lucky.
It was on Skype, if that's the best intro. So, tell us about what you do, the heart business, etc.
What the heck do I do? Well, I still have to ingest that.
Just breathe, Mark. Okay. Just breathe. Okay.
So I don't do so well at breathing, but I can work at it today. What we do is we do a spiritual bait and switch. People come to us for business help, and we end up annihilating their ego. At least that's what someone just wrote us recently. So this is something that we've been involved in for the last 16 years. So I'm pretty pleased that we're still getting that result.
I love that. Let me, because I invited Mark. You may know Mark, but I invited him. So first of all,
We'll just bitch about each other all the way through.
So. First of all, so I'm cool as well, So I'm cool. Let me get the cool vibe from Mark, But I have one of my best friend, Maria. I think she attended one of your workshops, But I asked her, who is the most extraordinary guy that you know, or the guy that you like the best, and she said Mark Silver. She didn't even hesitate. She said Mark Silver. You impressed her so much, so I was very, very curious, and then I went to your website and then I understood why, because you have this your tagline, or I don't know, but it's heart, love, and business, and for me, somehow it's both are two separate things to me, because this is how my belief system worked before, right? So can you just explain it? How the hell did you come with that? And by the way, in 1999, I believe, where basically all the business were booming, where you had to make money and all these kind of things. How did it come to you?
Well, I was an activist from an early age, and I despite growing up in business, I really hated business, especially corporatist business. And my activist and social justice training has shown me that the economy and our marketplace is deeply, deeply dysfunctional in a way that is life-destroying. Kind of put a buzzkill on the laughter we had earlier, but it's true.
Fine, we're fucked. Fine.
It's. I mean, you know,
you want one.
The corporate the corporate focus on profit has destroyed cultures, destroyed our environment, killed people. It's just, you know, destroyed our lives, basically laid waste, where it becomes just kind of an accepted fact that people hate work. And when that's not always been true. And so when I started to do training with my Sufi teachers, and I began to see that there are these weird esoteric Sufi teachings that I saw, I'm like, oh, that's what's going on inside this business practice or that business practice in a more profound way. Like, that's more of the reality of what's happening. It started to come together. And I spent the first several years of my business kind of making those connections for myself, because I was so thirsty, and for clients who, you know, trusted me in those early years, God knows why. And it started to really come together. It took 4 or 5, 6 years for it to really come together. And then I began to see in a more holistic sense and at a larger view that the ills of this world, that the answer is not business entirely, but it's partly business. Business has to be part of cleaning up the mess that business has created. And at the same time, there are so many of the change makers, of the healers, of the people that are really trying to do good in this world. There's no job descriptions that they'll get employed at, so they're forced to be self-employed. And so at the same time that we need to make a living in the current economy, we're also trying to presence something completely different. And so we're in this very strange transition moment where capitalism is really in its last gasps, I believe. Not business, because business has been around for millennia, but capitalism in its current dangerous, cancerous state is kind of in its last gasps. And and people need to keep a roof over their head and food on the table at the same time that we're trying to create something much more life-sustaining.
What the hell, man! I want you to be my guru immediately. I just love everything that you said.
I'm crushed.
I loved everything that you said.
A higher level of guru. Yeah.
I have many questions, but Tim, I think that you took some notes right at the moment.
I do because I want to go back to something. So when I first knew you, Mark, and I couldn't believe it when Olivier sent me an email. You know, I've asked this guy onto the podcast. I was thinking, oh, why didn't I think of that? Nah,
because you're stupid.
Yeah, stupid, self-controlled, and all that kind of crap, you know. So when I first got to know you, and I have no idea where that was now. You know, we're going back probably, you know, a number of years when we all used to write on self-development and comment on each other's blogs or whatever. But I'd never heard of the expression heart-centered business until I met you, until I became familiar with your writings, etc. But over the last 3 or 4 years, the expression seems to have exploded. But I've got to say, it seems to have exploded with businesses that aren't really heart-centered. It's become almost like a buzz phrase now. It's just a buzzword, you know, whatever. It's just like, I'm going to call it a heart-centered business, therefore people, you know. And I just wonder, and I don't want to lead you into any of this stuff, because I know you're a laid-back kind of a guy, and you're easygoing and let people do what they want to do, but just frustrate. I think it would. It frustrates me on your behalf. It's like, hang on, Mark was doing that. This, but it's just kind of like, and when it's used to generate profit, like, okay, well, I'm working with a heart-centered business. I'd just like to get your opinion on that.
Yeah. Well, there's a few different thoughts I have about that. One is that I have a genuine appreciation for how much more accepted spirituality in business has become. A friend of mine, Martin Root, coined the term spirituality in business, if you can coin a term like that, way back in the 80s. And it's become more and more and more accepted to do that. And so, of course, you have different, amounts of quality or amounts of depth or different ways of doing that kind of sprout up. And so I'm really grateful that there's a lot more acceptance. At the same time, it's kind of this is part of what capitalism does, is it exploits something that's true, whether it's like the anti-capitalist origins of the punk music, punk music that was my kind of musical origin.
Example,
that's gotten totally, that got taken over, and the same with hip hop and all of this. It's like, it's capitalism does that. I mean, it's part of why capitalism has been so cancerously successful, is because it uses whatever comes towards it. And so, and I think that the thing that is most painful is that we often have people show up in our sphere that have been through programs that have where it's been painful experiences for them. They've spent a lot of money, they've been involved in a lot of adrenaline based pushing in business, and then they end up really needing to have some healing and recovery from that kind of an experience. And I think overall there's been a positive effect, and there's been, naturally some wounding too.
You said something which I agree with you. You said capitalism is kind of dying at the moment, So we can feel it, but is there like any obvious sign for you which says, well, look, this is it. This is the last breath, as you said. What would it be for you?
Yeah, I don't know what the last breath would be. All I know is that, if you look back a century, 2 centuries, 3 centuries ago, money, currency was used in a much smaller percentage of life. And there was a lot more barter or just family support, just things that weren't sold and bought. And as capitalism has expanded, more and more and more has entered into the financial realm and into the place of being a transaction or, bought and sold. And there's not much left, bottling water, bottling air, bottling, like a lot of.
Where is that? Can I get that?
Well, I mean, you see these little things in that started out perhaps as vendor kinds of, tourism kinds of things, bottled air from such and such a place. But now you see places that are so badly polluted that, people are buying air or buying air filtration devices to try to be able to just breathe. And childcare is another example. Childcare used to be nothing anybody ever spent money on. You had friends, you had extended family, you had the village, and now childcare. You can spend a lot of money on nannies. You can spend a lot of money on these childcare services, and I don't blame people who use them because of the way that work life has expanded from a family being able to support itself with a single job, now needing 2 jobs to support themselves. I think there's just a lot of ways that if you look closely, and I've, reading people like Charles Eisenstein, Sacred Economics, and among other kinds of forward-thinking economists, is that there's just not much left to put a dollar sign on, or a euro or a pound or a yen. You know, you can't.
It's a pound through the toilet.
All of these things, you know, and there's just not much left to sell, and so when that's generally when cancer kills the body, right? When there's not much left to colonize.
That's very dark, my friend.
Just I want to mention one. First of all, I thought you said bottled hair, which is why I jumped in. Not air. I missed that. Well, maybe if we could all buy bottled air from a pure place and then transport it to whatever Beijing or and release it. But anyway, so I'll just cross that out of that bottled hair
as an idea for you. Maybe you can see your subconscious. Your subconscious is only about hair.
Okay. You could bottle hair because you've got loads of it. We could pick 300 or 400 out there and nobody'd notice, and you could sell it to me, and I would put it.
That was a very bad joke, and I can see that Mark is very nice with you because he's laughing at your jokes, So I understand why he was laughing at your Brussels sprout jokes.
Whole situation. He's laughing, thinking, "Why the hell am I here?"
Exactly.
It's just whatever.
I'm at origin, I'm at origin Jewish, and so if I'm not laughing, I'm crying, and so it's
I love that. My wife, she moved to America. She started saying "oh yeah," what is it? Oh yeah, I think I might be wrong, but she says it all the time because she works. A number of the nurses that work around her are Jewish, and they say it, and she started saying it. It's just like it's kind of so weird from this Catholic brought up woman, just to say something like that. But here's where I want to go back. I want to go back because I want to share this interview with other coaches, which for the most part I don't. But I know you're a superb coach, and I think with coaching, and Olivier's certified with the ICF, and he's done some extended training as well. And I think as coaches we have a duty of care to look at other modalities and think, well, can that help my client? At the end of the day, it's all about. I had a client from Tanzania this morning. It was our first session. I killed it after 15 minutes because I couldn't. Her accent was so thick. I was missing about 1 in 3 words. And I don't know where my head was during the consult. I actually sent an email out to my newsletter saying it must have been up my ass because I asked anybody that's used to Eastern African accents where I could, refer. But I want to go back to something you said about. You said that you weren't sure why clients trusted you in your first years, and I think that's a common thing. But I'd like to hear you expand on that.
Yeah, well, I think that, obviously, when you're new at something, you're not good.
Like us, for instance, with our podcast. Sorry.
Yeah, we've been doing.
I wasn't going to say anything.
No, clearly it was against us, but that's fine. Continue.
Yeah, I feel like I had a lot of skill from other experiences coming into that, and I also know that the prices I charged were, of course, much much lower at that point, and but I guess I'm not quite sure where you want, what exactly you want me to expand on. I feel like I feel grateful. Like now I have a track record, right? I've been doing this particular work in this particular field for, 16, 17 years now. And I feel pretty confident in terms of knowing who I can work with and how I can help them. And back then I had a lot less confidence or clarity and I would say rightfully so. I didn't have that. And so I was just grateful that people, were willing to take a chance with me, and I like to hope that to trust that when people said I was helpful to them, that I was.
Okay, so I can answer the question of why I asked about that and what, because I went through exactly the same process. I got as many testimonials in my first year as I did in my 8th or 9th year or whatever. And I sometimes think that some coaches, so it's kind of trying to separate between whether our confidence dictates our performance or whether we're performing okay, but we don't allow ourselves to be confident. Because you said, of course, as I got older, I got more confident. That's a cause and effect. Well, it isn't a cause and effect, I beg your pardon. It's complex equivalence. It means that. It doesn't necessarily. I know people I've worked with, I can think of at least 3 coaches who have set off really super confident, not doubting their own ability, yet they hadn't done any coaching. So I think in that respect, my suspicion is you were probably better than you thought you were. And I think that's what I was getting at. Were you really incompetent because you were just starting? Did you have people complaining? I know I didn't, and I know most coaches don't. That's not me trying to be arrogant. I think it's a fact.
Well, and people don't like to complain; they just disappear.
Well, they do in England, mate. I was coaching in England. They love to complain. There is nothing. It is our national sport is to complain about shit. It's just like, well, that wasn't good enough. Whatever. But I know what you mean. But they also don't like to refer or offer a testimonial, So I'm just wondering whether, my thought is you were probably better than, it doesn't, what we do is a process and we get better all the time.
Right. Right. And I had a lot of experience that I brought into the start, like I'd done other things. I'd been a teacher for years. I was a paramedic for years, and I was a field training officer and a paramedic preceptor. So I taught new paramedics how to learn and apply their skills and get street skills. And I had a lot of business experience, and I grew up in business around my parents. And so I wasn't, brand new. It was just a new combination. And in the course of my spiritual training, I was in a 3-year training, and then I was in a 2-year teacher training, and then eventually I did my Master's of Divinity. And during that time, I did hundreds of practice sessions. And so I feel like I feel like I brought a lot of experience and competence to the very beginnings of my business. So I feel, and I think that I also in my own walking spiritually, one of the things that I learned to embrace, which was not easy for me in the beginning, was to really embrace the idea that I make a lot of mistakes, and that's okay. That's like part of the process. And I can hear criticism, and I can hear people saying negative things without really getting triggered. And that wasn't true for me earlier in my life.
Okay. I would like to go back actually to a spiritual process, because I think this is something very important to you. You said that you make sense of this business thing, once you went to study Sufism, if I'm correct, something like that. So
yeah, Sufism, right?
Yeah, so actually, maybe you can explain what it is exactly, this Sufism. But how did it help you, just to figure it out what was wrong and how you can help in this business world? Because if you put, again, I said heart and love and business, but if you put spirituality and business, that's very opposite to me almost, So can you
Right. Right. So Sufism is the mystical side of Islam. And, currently in the U.S., the best-selling poets have been for years Rumi and Hafiz, and they're both Sufi, Islamic Sufis, Muslims, and or were. They're no longer alive, and for many hundreds of years.
They'll be knocking on a bit now, wouldn't they?
And so Sufism, for me, what it did was, I think, like most spiritual paths practiced sincerely help you look at yourself and help burn away the parts that are keeping you from experiencing a deeper sense of love and a deeper sense of oneness and a deeper sense of connection. And so that's was it something I said, Tim?
Yeah, he just got offended. So I love that because he put like a small note on the screen to say I'll be right back, or fuck off, and he just forgot that we put video. It's on YouTube, so everybody knows that it's out. But anyway, sorry about that. I hope that you still have your train of thought. So can you? Yeah.
Right. No. And so, for me. It's been a really important piece of the puzzle because when you say that you see business and spirituality as separate, for me they're not like different lands on a map where there's clear separation between things. It's more, for me, if you're going to use that analogy, you have countries and peoples that sit on top of the globe, but underneath there's this earth that's holding them all together, that's holding them all up. And the earth is the same. The qualities of the earth might be different in different places, but the essence of the earth is the same. And so for me, it's not a matter of integrating spirituality in business. It's about opening our hearts and discovering, is love available even here? Is source available even here? Is divine available even here? Like, how can we witness this presence? I mean, enlightenment, one definition of enlightenment is being able to witness the divine in anything at any moment. And I would never make a claim towards that, but I do know that my spiritual process has enabled me to witness the divine and witness the presence of love in far more situations and far more moments than I had previously.
So
okay, I'm glad about that, because could you offer love to the person that just came to my front door on my podcast? That would be great if you could do that. I gave them actually. So were you going to say something, Olivier? If you weren't, I am.
No, I had a question, because to me it's I'm agnostic, even more agnostic. I'm going to atheist more and more, I think, and that's. But I agree with your message of love, for instance, and heart. And this is something, this is so important today in the business world. From my background, I was in corporate for 14 years, and I've seen all the suffering of people and the loss of meaning and the apathy, and we just have a job and we need to be okay with this job, and that's it. This is how the world works, right? But to me is, so you come from a very spiritual and you mentioned divine and things. So what about me? Let's say I'm agnostic, atheist, and I want to basically spread the love, but can you help me? Is it possible without any? And I know that my question is very, very stupid as well, but that's really that's
you're hopeless. You will burn in hell.
I will burn in hell. You miserable.
I need to come in here. There is no, my first book was Don't Ask Stupid Questions, but the subtitle, which a lot of people miss, was There Are No Stupid Questions. If you're looking to learn something, or you're looking to help other people by asking a question, it's not a stupid question. I mean, it really isn't. And it really frustrates me, because, I can't remember who said it, but, don't ask a question. Ask a question, look dumb for 5 seconds. Don't ask a question and stay dumb for a lifetime. And I'm a real big believer in that. And you ask some great questions, and sometimes it's maybe I don't want to ask them, or people listen, don't feel like they should know the answer.
Yeah.
And every one of us didn't know everything we know at one point in our lives. Mark, at some point, knew nothing about Sufi. So go on. So ask the fucking questions.
Thank you, Tim. I feel so loved by you. By the way, this is actually, it works. Love is all around us. You made it. There's love in our podcast now.
Just ask a question and shut up.
No, but is it like, can you help people without having this idea of divinity, or like something which is high above?
Right. Well, I mean, the question is, do you need help, right?
Yeah.
Really? And it seems like you're doing fine, right? So I guess the what I sometimes say to people is, the God that you don't believe in, I don't believe in either, right? It's like we're not talking about a beard in the sky. We're not talking about some of these literal pictures that come out of these sacred texts that are really metaphorical. They're not meant to be taken literally, right? And so, despite some people's taking of that, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but it's kind of hard to take especially English text literally when they're a translation of a translation of a translation, and the original meanings of the words have been lost because of the various political intentions that were brought into the translations, and especially something like King James version of the Bible. It's just painful what's brought there. But anyway, coming back to the question, I would say that you know what love is, right? It's like it's like you've felt it. And when you feel that, you feel, you're in a different state. And you feel, at least my experience of love or connection has me transcending a sense of myself as kind of smaller, like when I'm not connected to love, I feel smaller. I feel kind of collapsed. I feel like there's walls around me. When I feel a sense of love or connection, I feel expanded. I can look at the trees or the people around me and I can feel a sense of connection and oneness with them. That's the tasting that I'm talking about. That to me is one expression of the divine. And so, in particular, one of the things that I've never, especially being raised Jewish, but it's like I don't have any drop of desire to be evangelistic in me, and we have a very spiritual perspective in how we work. And if people don't like the flavor of that, I'm very happy to refer people to folks that teach business from a heart-centered perspective with a lot of integrity that don't carry the same kind of explicit spiritual overtones that we do. I think that there's so many different flavors. In the Quran, there's a quote that says, the divine made us in different communities and in different people so that we may know one another. There's a love of diversity. There's also another quote in the Quran that it's like there is no compulsion in religion. You wouldn't know that to see people practice. Some people practice it, but that's really at the heart of spiritual path, is that we need to walk our own path. We need to walk our own path and discover our own relationship. And I find a lot of truth in my experience of something larger, of the sense of oneness, of the sense of the non-dual. And I find, and for me, the theistic expression of that is because this is getting into a bigger topic, but when you talk about spiritual practices, you can, if you want to, paint them in two broad strokes. There's contemplative practices and devotional practices. Contemplative practices tend to be the popularized in for instance, the Zen style of meditation, of emptying out, of quieting down, of letting go, of this non-attachment. Very, very important practices. These practices of these contemplative practices. There are Sufi contemplative practices also. It's something that's incredibly important. At the same time, there's also devotional practices, and devotional practices are not practices of non-attachment. They're practices of attachment, and they function in a similar way to Narcan. I'll lean into my paramedic background, but there's a drug, naloxone, Narcan, that you can give to people that are high on opiates like heroin. And when you give them the Narcan floods in and fills all the receptors that normally are filled with the heroin and block the heroin from killing you and zoning you out. It wakes you up. And there's a way that devotional practices can attach you to love in a way that crowds out all the crap. that you may be ordinarily filled with. And so I find that this balance between devotional contemplative practices, the emptying out and the filling up, to be a way to kind of flush the system and leave the heart more unveiled, more true. I'll add in one more analogy, which is that the Sufis talk about the heart as a mirror. And when we talk about it as the mirror, there's the modern mirror, which is silvered glass. There's silver behind glass, but ancient mirrors were metal that were polished. And you had to polish them on a regular, consistent basis, because otherwise, eventually, oxidation would create rust and it would distort the image. So you can't see the image truly. And this is how we go through life, right? This kind of analogy is used in all kinds of personal development examples, where it's like, oh, my beliefs are blocking my eyes, and so you look like a monster to me, but I'm really just imposing previous beliefs and experiences on you, and I'm not seeing you truly. And spiritual practice, according to the Sufis, in one sense, is about polishing that mirror so that the essence of the divine, so that the essence of love can shine more clearly, and so we can see more truly, and so that we can act from this place of as purely as possible, reflecting the light of the sun, to be a full moon instead of just a sliver of moon, so the light can shine brilliantly upon ourselves and everyone around us.
For fuck's sake, man!
You've just talked for the longest time anybody in 2 years we've had on this podcast, and that's not because you were talking because. For any other reason that we were both fascinated, and that was awesome. I love that. I also have got a tremendous amount of respect. The fact that, as a Jewish-born guy who's now Sufi or whatever can quote the Quran. I think if one of my favorite books on spirituality of all time is Living Buddha, Living Christ by Thich Nhat Hanh, where he just basically says, these guys were just, preaching the same message. Just be good. Just be nice to people. That's pretty much it. He could have written an 80-word blog post. I was going to use the Jim Jeffries C word then. Just don't be but it's just be nice to each other.
You want to hear something freaky that I saw during my Sufi, the early years of my practicing in Sufism, when I was really worried about betraying Judaism in myself. And I had a very deep spiritual experience around this. But one of the things that I saw was that if you write Yud He Vav He in Hebrew, which is the name of God in Hebrew, and you write Allah in Arabic, and you turn one of them upside down, it's the same shape. Mm-hmm. And it's even more so. I saw the Dead Sea Scrolls in a museum in Seattle when they were on display there. And the ancient Hebrew matches exactly.
Just tell people what the Dead Sea Scrolls are in case everybody's listening.
So the Dead Sea Scrolls were scrolls that were found of the. I'm not even going to be accurate about what they were, but they were the oldest scrolls. The oldest scrolls found of in Hebrew about the Old Testament, and I'm not going to be accurate. I'd have to Google it real quickly. But it's but they're very ancient scrolls from around the time of Jesus' life, actually. And the ancient Hebrew, not the modern Hebrew, but the ancient Hebrew, the shape of the letters matches the Arabic Allah exactly. Mm. Exactly. When one's upside down, like if you were facing across the table from each other. And there's lots of coincidences that happen, but when I saw that, I had that feeling, the chills up and down the back, and then like, oh, there's something very profound here in this. And it's it says in the Quran that that it's only come to confirm what has been sent down before. And it says also that prophets have been sent to every people in every land with the same message. And it's like all of these different texts from different perspectives all carry truth in them. There really is only one truth. And I don't mean one truth in a kind of fundamentalist way of like believe our way or die, but just this way of like we're all just trying to access love. We're all just trying to access oneness, and we're all trying to see in each other this presence of love without all the crap that gets in the way that divides us in very unnecessary ways and causes us to hurt each other in the ways that business has done, in the ways that religion that has gotten too rule-bound has done, in the ways that families that have been traumatized in different ways do to each other.
But to me, it's your message to me resonates a lot, about love, but still, and this is my belief system, it's the business side of this, is how it will look like, if you have a business with love, right? Because to me, as soon as you put business, to me, I see hierarchy, I see pyramids, I see greed, I see profits, I see we need to go faster and stronger and so what this business will look like, because you use the same word, you use business, but with heart. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. So let me give you an example. So, and this is a common example because we work on all aspects of business, but marketing is a big one, especially for folks we work with in early stages of business development. And so if you study marketing for any length of time, they will tell you one of the things that you have to do is name the problem. You have to talk about the problem. And this has been something that has been worked to a high pitch. Certain discoveries in psychology in the early 20th century turned marketing and sales into a minefield of manipulative psychological tactics and strategies that have created an immense amount of harm and hurt an immense number of people. And a lot of it has been based around this thing of naming the pain and re-traumatizing people to the point where they have to run to escape the pain, and they run into your arms and you trap them, right? This is a classic lack of integrity, evil practice in business. However, one of the very basic things that I've learned about healing is that people need to be witnessed. There's a Sufi quote that says the divine had a yearning to be known, and so they created the creation in order to be known. And we have this yearning inside us. When we are seen, truly seen, we take a breath and we slow down and we become present, and there's a trust and a connection that's built. And so that if you can, in your marketing, speak to someone's challenges, not trying to re-traumatize them, but coming from a place of presence, from true, authentic presence of saying, wow, I'm seeing how you're struggling, and you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. It's totally normal. And of course you're struggling, and there's pain, and I have so much empathy for you. That's the beginning of healing process. And the marketing, when you name a pain from that perspective, feels completely different. It feels completely different. People feel like, oh, they do feel seen, and they do feel like they can relax, and they do feel like they can drop down into their hearts. And then they have more sense of themselves and their own sovereignty, their own sense of being able to make their own choices. And instead of being re-traumatized, they're like, oh, maybe I'm okay. Maybe I don't need to buy anything. Or maybe there's enough trust that, oh, I want to listen to what you have to say and see if there's some consistency here in your integrity. And they're willing to build up a relationship and make a choice at a slower pace than being just traumatized into a purchase.
Yeah, well, there's an NLP, and I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of NLP now, but there's an NLP presupposition that nobody's broken. And it's something that I strongly believe, and I strongly encourage other coaches who I train to believe. It's just we have different ways of dealing with things. And there's another presupposition. So it sounds to go on about this, but it's every intention has a positive action. Every action has a positive intention. We do things because we think they're going to work for us. So maybe we take drugs because we think, well, it's going to make us feel better for a period of time and we'll be able to numb the pain or whatever. Or maybe I'm going to drive for that business deal because then I'll be accepted by my peers or whatever. And it's interesting, because your way of dealing with sales is a complete 180. So I worked in sales for 20 years, and sales is when you taught sales, it's all about find the pain, drill down and down and down and down, find that pain, expose it, almost like the root of a tooth. Keep drilling until you hit that pain barrier and then say, oh, how do I cure it? And it even though I know that works with people with the psyche and whatever, it never felt comfortable to me. It still doesn't. It just doesn't feel comfortable to me. But it's interesting. I think you're the first person we've ever had on that has taken a different approach to that and still been successful. So I would have been told, well, yeah, you can do that. You can go and look to help people or whatever. But if you can't uncover the pain, you're never going to succeed at doing it. And you break them all with that.
Right. Well, people need to be witnessed. They need to be witnessed. We need to be seen. And, if all we do is talk about the inspirational side of what's possible, no, how are people going to believe that? It's like, well, you don't see my pain. You don't see my struggle. How do I know that what you're saying is actually going to work for me? And it's so when they feel like, oh, you see my pain in a way that isn't judgmental, in a way that really accepts me, then I might have a sense that what you're saying is, is appropriate, is topical for what I'm facing. And I just feel like that needs to go together. I mean, so heart-centered business. So one of the things that one of the decisions we made in Heart and we got to this point where we could, is that we were tired of running everything according to a deadline, meaning that, oh, we have this program that starts at this particular date, you better jump on board. But we kept hearing from people, oh, the timing doesn't quite work for me, but I'm going to jump on because otherwise when you're a very small business or you're an individual, sometimes you just, you're one person, you just can't do any differently, right? Because the systems involved to do it differently would be really hard unless you're just doing one-on-one coaching or one-on-one services where, an acupuncturist can take on a client at any time if their schedule's not full. But for programs and teachings and things like that. But we spent a lot of time. We spent 2 years developing the systems and the programs so that we can start a new program every month so that people can go on their own timing. So we don't push like, oh, if you don't join now, you're doomed. Sometimes we will offer incentives saying, oh, if you want to start now, here's an extra little incentive, but we mention, and the program, and you won't miss out. Like, don't take it. Wow. If, this isn't going to save you. If you miss out on this bonus, it's fine. There's more chocolate cake later. It's just like if you're eating
chocolate cake, sign me up. You never said that.
Exactly. But it's, so we make these choices. Another thing that we talk about around heart-centered businesses is around systems. Like, so many times systems are made to become much less present in business. And yet when we talk about the human body or we talk about natural systems, like, systems are just a part of life. Systems work. It's like if I had to think about consciously my heart beating and my whole respiratory system working, I couldn't be present with this conversation. And I've seen that. I've seen, when I was a paramedic, people who have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease like emphysema, it's like they have to think about their breathing. They can't hold a conversation. And so you have to be able to identify where in your business is it okay for things to function less consciously, like you put the heart into developing the system so that the system itself has care and love in it, and so that you can bring your conscious care and love to the places where it's really needed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just my mum died from emphysema, and I watched her go through that. She had Alzheimer's as well, and I know exactly what you mean, where it suddenly becomes an effort. She described it, and I don't think it. I think it's been described, previously, like trying to breathe through a straw. And it does. It distracts people from anything else because that's where the focus is. Mark, I want to ask you a question, and feel free to just avoid this entirely and say you don't want to talk about it. But how, with what's going on in what I'm going to say, don't you? With what's going on,
I actually don't. I'm curious.
At the moment, with the lead up to November the 8th, how does that, if at all, impact you? And I ask that because I find it difficult to step away from that, and I want to be able to, and I'm just curious if you're a great guy. I don't want to embarrass you, but I just wonder how that affects you, if at all. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it does. It affects me at a certain level. I mean, it's very painful because on one hand, you have a candidate who, is kind of like the blatant example of all of the prejudices and pains of our country. And on the other hand, you have a candidate who has, who represents the corporatist interests of our country. And I know that one is less harmful than the other, in my mind, from my perspective, but neither of them are life-affirming choices. Both of them represent continuations of the system in a certain way. I will be voting, and I will be voting not for Trump because of the extreme hatred that he represents. But at the same time, the United States was built on genocide.
I wrote that this morning to a client of mine. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It was built on genocide. The only reason that the United States has the wealth that it has, the only reason that Europe has the wealth that it has is because of colonies, wealth taken and extracted from the lives and the natural resources of other continents through military force. And the only reason the United States had the funds to continue existing as a country is because of the genocide practiced on Native Americans and the land stolen from them, and the labor stolen from chattel slavery of Africans. Is the only reason we exist as a country. We would never have expanded the way that we did, and we would never have become the power that we did, except for those stolen resources. And we have never, in the history of our country, from before we were a country, stopped fighting and killing and slaughtering those that kept us from the resources that we needed. And I can't think of anything more painful. And I don't know what it will take to heal from this. I don't know what kind of healing is possible. I don't know what's necessary. People talked about like the change that happened in South Africa with the Truth and Reconciliation process and how apartheid was dismantled. And that was in a country that's majority Black African, dealing with colonizers on foreign soil. We've already decimated the Native Americans. And made them, I won't say powerless, because I think that there's a tremendous power in those peoples still, and yet they don't have political or military or the numbers to stand up. And and African Americans are in a small minority in our country. And I don't, I won't say it's hopeless because I don't believe in hopelessness, but I don't see the path forward. And so I'm not, yeah. And so when people bring this up saying, oh, this thing against, red versus blue or however you want to, I feel like there's a much deeper struggle that's been moving for centuries, and I don't know how it's going to end.
Thank you for your honesty. I really, you could have easily ducked the question, and I think anybody that's honest with themselves would agree with what you said. Who knows what the answer is? If the answer was obvious, we'd be moving towards it as a nation. Even I'm a Brit, and we're guilty of the kind of things you talk about. Olivier's French; they're guilty about the same things. The Brits, the French, and the Spanish, in terms of and to a lesser extent the Italians. That's exactly. We just. The Brits, we rape and tortured often the known world at the time. So I'm going to pass over to Olivier.
Because right now there's this tone, this sudden tone, but but what I love about you.
What's your favourite joke?
Tell us about the joke about the Brussels sprouts, mate. No, no, sorry. No, I just we're
back and forth about my love for Brussels sprouts.
Anyway, so we're approaching the hour. So I just have a last question for you, because to me this is I can see the love in you. I can see this radiant love that you have, this energy, and this you're a very nice guy. This is who you are. You just like this gentle energy, that just radiate. And I can see at the same time, I can see the cynicism that we have, at the moment, about marketing and businesses. And you mentioned at the very beginning that capitalism is kind of dying, right? And I would like really much to believe, that we are making a difference, And I'm sorry, maybe we will end with this dark note as well. But do you think that do we have a chance? Do we have a chance, or is it too late? Can we do something about it? Because to me, this problem is huge, and we are making very small differences. But is it too late?
I think it depends. I mean, again, and I will, with all due respect, the way that question is phrased is what has been put into us by the culture of is it going to be amazing or is it going to be doomed? And I think that, it's like we split it up into this. I think that it's too late for there not to be big changes. What those changes look like, I think, is really up in the air. There's climate change is happening. Yeah. So
no, it's not.
That's happening.
Trump said no, it's not happening.
Climate change is happening. Food insecurity is happening. Things are in motion. However, at the same time, there's a tremendous number of people who are also in motion. I mean, one of the reasons we picked up and moved across the country, across the continent, we moved into this eco-village because more and more and more people are learning community and connection, relationship are really important. Taking back, reskilling ourselves, not for a survivalist nightmare, but for really knowing that, we don't have to spend all of our time working to make money to pay for our necessities, but we can produce some of those ourselves. I was having a wonderful conversation with someone here in the community where they are wanting to build their own house here, but they want to literally build their own house. They don't want to just pay somebody to build the house. And they're talking to someone who's wanting to empower people to build their own houses because it's way less expensive. Again, less currency needed, less hard money needed, and more labor and more love and more community. And it's totally possible. You can build your own house. People did it for many, it's like we've been
fall down. Trust me. That's not what. going to give you got to check my wife. The fucker would fall down, it would crush us to death, and it would be your fault. So,
Right.
sorry, mate.
So we've been reduced to this sense of helplessness. Like, it's not, but it's not. I don't think it's hopeless. But can we continue living the lives that we've been living for the last 50 years to 100 years? No, we can't. That's doomed. What's coming next? I don't know. And I know that myself and many, many, many other people are working very hard from a place of love and hopefully from a place of joy and fun and humor to bring about something that is life affirming, that is supportive. And I have a very strong hope in that. And I don't believe that we can access that without going through a process also of grief for what we have lost and what has happened. And I think that grief and joy, life and death, they're all in the mix together. And it's really about, that's what being human is about.
Awesome.
I've got to say, mate, you're even more lovely in person than you are on Twitter, and I'm so glad we got to speak with one another after knowing you for so long, just through little tweets and things like that. And I want to thank you for your honesty. And like I say, not ducking the questions. I know it would be easy to do that for some people. So thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for all the softball questions. You made it easy for me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark, for this. It was awesome, and I just really, really love what you're saying. So
yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. I feel really honored to be here. You guys are just lovely to be with.
I've never shut up as much. You probably think I'm butting in, but actually, if you watched any of our previous podcasts, you'd know this is me. Oh God,
that's because I've been using Sufi mind tricks.
Yeah, I knew it.
Watch the bees.
You're manipulating us. Come on.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Peace and love.
Peace, my friend.